Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Growing Your Business with Twitter webinar. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. There's a little hand icon that will allow you to lift your hand. If you can hear me okay, please click that. Excellent. Okay, so everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Brent Mondu. I'm the CEO of Envision It Interactive. We're a local firm that specializes in internet presences on all mediums, web, mobile, and social media. And today I'm here to talk to you about growing your business with Twitter. First of all, I'd like to thank the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce for inviting me and for hosting this webinar on our behalf. I hope that everyone gets a lot of value out of this. I've put together a lot of information surrounding the topic from beginner to intermediate. And so I hope that it caters to everyone of all levels of experience. At this time, I'd like to make it important. I'd like to identify that it's a good idea not to take notes during this, because this webinar will be made available to everyone afterwards. You can watch it again and again via YouTube. And there will also be a presentation that you can download so that you can look at the slides and whatnot. So don't feel like you need to take notes. I'd rather have your attention, and when you're going to listen to the things that I say, it's going to be very important that you're paying attention to what I'm doing on the screen for the hands-on portions of it. For those of you who are comfortable with and know Twitter and hashtags, feel free to talk using the hashtag #GrowSocial. We'll be listening to what you say, and you can talk amongst yourself and whatnot. For those of you who aren't, well, that's why you're here today, so don't worry. You will learn about that. So let's get started. So what is Twitter? Well, Twitter is a social networking site that allows users to communicate and network with each other using tweets. Tweets are essentially 140-character status updates. Twitter is like any other social networking site. It's all about building relationships. It's all about engaging and discussing, and it's not really a medium to just sit there and broadcast. How do you use Twitter successfully? Some of the rules I'm going to get into right now, because I've got a lot of hands-on stuff and I want to really provide a lot of value. A lot of people that use Twitter, initially they start out, they send out a few tweets, and they don't really know how to keep that up, and they don't really know what they're doing. So one of the most important things is to space out your tweets. A lot of companies that start out, they start out by, every morning they come in, they send a tweet, and they're done for the day, or even 3 times a week and whatnot. It's important to space those out so that you can maximize your engagement. An example of this, years ago I used to come in the morning, and at 9 a.m. I would send out a few tweets, and I'd be done with it as well. The problem is not everyone else, not your audience, not people that are engaging with you are on at 9 a.m. Some of them are, but most of them might not be. And so by spacing them out, you maximize your potential for exposure. Now, the first thing I said was Twitter enables you to send out 140 characters per tweet. I'm going to ask you guys to send out 120 characters per tweet, and I'll explain why a little bit later. It has to do with what's known as retweeting, whereby people can share the tweets that you send out and whatnot, and making sure that they do not get truncated. So very, very important, and again, I'll show you that a little bit later in the hands-on. How important is Twitter, and how much is it growing? Presently, there are 200 million registered users. 52% of them tweet daily. More than 100 million of them tweet every day. Every day there's 450,000 new accounts created each and every day. In fact, since this webinar started, that means another 1,200 new companies have already signed up to Twitter while I've been talking to you. And as well, every couple of minutes that passes, that number will have signed up as well. 75% of users are more likely to purchase from a brand that they follow. And this is because they get constantly exposed to your message. They remember you when it's time to purchase. They also trust the word of mouth of others, and it's a lot more comforting when trying to make a decision if it's from someone that's unbiased, if they're looking for a product or service. And 69% of people follow simply due to a recommendation. Now I'm going to show you and talk to you a little bit about setting up and customizing your profile. I won't go through the actual setup process. If you're not sure how to actually sign up to Twitter, feel free to talk to your technology team or a friend or family member, but actually setting up that would take too much time out of the webinar for other stuff that's going to be more important for you. And once you've captured that, you'll be on your way anyhow. So there's 4 important things when you set up your profile: your username, your logo, your bio, and your background. Each one of these have a different reason for it. Your username is simple. Once you've set it, you can change it, but people won't recognize you. If you have hundreds and hundreds of followers and you change your username and start tweeting under another username, chances are your followers aren't going to recognize it going by. They won't engage, and when they go to try and tweet back to you and respond to messages and whatnot, they may be like, I'm trying their username, but I can't find them. So you want to make sure you choose a username that's easy to remember, clear, and doesn't have to be changed later because you chose the wrong name. A logo, I'm going to actually pull up the screen now and show you. The logo is the little icons here on each one of these tweets that are coming through. As you can see, some of them tend to draw your eye better to the tweets and whatnot. So they gain more exposure just by choosing a logo that is engaging. You know, it pulls the eye in, and this is very important. If you don't actually set that up, you end up with an egg icon. I don't know if I have any here. I don't know if I follow anyone that has an egg icon. Not on purpose, just it's very important to have that. So I don't see any, but it's a little egg icon, so it tends to be very, passive and whatnot. So in terms of the bio, the reason you fill out the bio is because if someone goes to view your profile, so I'm going to view our profile. This is oftentimes what people read to determine whether or not they're going to follow you. So an example of this would be if I tweet or if I talk to someone on there and they read my tweet, they may respond, they may not. They may follow me and they may not as well, but chances are if they're considering following me, as I consider following someone as well, they may click the profile to pull it up and see who they are and whatnot. And this helps them decide whether or not you would be an interesting party to follow. Very important to fill out, but also has another benefit in terms of search engine optimization. A technical topic I won't cover today. I'm just going to stay on the topic of social media, but important for you to know that as well, it can help your search engine optimization. Finally, background. If I go to a page, this is TechCrunch. They're a news company in the United States. They send out a lot of technology news and whatnot. They've got a background here, and they've set it up, and they market a lot of the different users that write for them. They advertise their Facebook presence, their email address, and whatnot. It's an opportunity for you to expose yourself to your potential clients and customers information. And you can set this background. Some people change it based upon promotions. Very good for seasonal businesses when they have an upcoming event, when they have stuff like that. They'll change their background so it has the company branding look and feel, and then market their top upcoming event or their new promotion or their new product they're about to launch. Apple's about to launch iPhone 5. They may set their background to be marketed, oriented around that. So those are the types of things you can do with it. So as you can see, if you set up your profile, that alone could double or triple your exposure and your engagement, because it could be the difference between someone deciding, yes, I'm going to follow them, or no, I'm not going to follow them. They're not very interesting, or I perceive them to have a spammy account. The next biggest challenge is items to tweet. So what do you want to tweet? So before I do that, I'm just going to backtrack a bit. You've read that a bit, but I'm going to select a poll. Do you feel that you know what to tweet? And I'd like people to answer this because I feel that it's a lot of people aren't sure that they know what to tweet. So I want to see what the general consensus feedback is. All right, I'm going to close that poll, and I'll share those results. So 70% of people believe that they don't know what to tweet, and it's a very common challenge. So I've put together a quick little slide before I get into a lot more of the hands-on stuff to talk about that, because each and every client I've met with when I talk about social media, especially pertaining to their companies, they don't know what to tweet. They don't know how to engage. They're like, I can't just keep talking about the same topics and whatnot. So first of all, and the most important, is remember to network. We all know networking events. You go into a room, you get to know people, you talk to them. You don't run up to them and throw a business card in their face and say, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. You talk a little bit. You talk about things you like. You talk about things of interest, industry news. You talk eventually about your products and services and what's going on in your industry and the events that you have coming up. You may do some of that stuff. It's the same thing here. You can network with people, talk with them, engage with them, find things of interest, and don't be afraid to go over the barrier of, oh, it's got to be specifically catered to my business. No, it could be broad information about, the industry in general. Of course, you can talk about news, events, promotions that you're having. You can share testimonials. Industry statistics are very interesting. A lot of people learn a lot from that. Regardless of the industry, there's a lot of different stats that would be interesting that other people won't know. Famous quotes tend to do very well on social media channels, positivity quotes, quotes from, Bill Gates in my industry, funny little things. People will retweet it because they think it's funny that someone actually perceived that it was true that computers could possibly be limited to, 64K, stuff like that. Retweeting interesting tweets is also another good way to tweet. And the reason for this is because the people you follow, you find that they've sent out something interesting and you retweet it. Later on, first of all, they'll appreciate that. But later on, as you're saying stuff that they find interesting, they may retweet it as well. Well, why is that important? Let's say you have 1,000 followers. Let's say one of your colleagues has also 1,000 followers, and they retweet something you've said. Now you have potentially 2,000 followers that'll see that tweet. But not just that. Let's say they've got a reputation with their followers, and one of their followers finds something that they said or that they retweeted on your behalf interesting. Well, now you've got 3,000, and that could very quickly exponentiate. That could create what's known as a trending topic. Increase engagement with images and videos. I've said this a number of times to clients. It's very, very important. On the website as well is very important. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a video is worth 1,000 pictures. They tend to get higher engagement on all social media channels. An example of this is when I send out a text tweet, I'll typically get less than 1% engagement. Doesn't mean that less than 1% are reading it. Very likelihood less than 1% might be reading some of them, but that depends on the number of factors, the time that I tweet and whatnot. But I get a much higher engagement, 1 to 2% with images, and as much as 5% with videos, depending on what they are. They're very, very powerful. People are visual. People are constrained for time. People are reading a quick little feed go by, and you've got to capture their attention somehow. What could you show? Products, of course. Pictures from a recent event, group photos from an event that you had, or let's say you own a martial arts academy and you have photos of a class or a birthday party thrown, showing those in there would be something that might get retweeted a lot and show off. Those are some examples. Now, let's get into the fun stuff. So Leveraging Twitter. I'm going to explain the @ symbol and the pound symbol. Many of you might know it, some of you might not. So please bear with me if you already know this, but I'm going to show it. I'm going to show retweet and why to do it. Keyword leveraging and hijacking. I know that hijacking word sounds bad. It's not, but it is very, very important as well. And watch your competitors. So let me open up that so I can show you all of that stuff. So here's my Twitter homepage right here. And the @ symbol is used to talk to individuals. You can talk to anyone on here. You may not even have to type it if you just click the reply and you want to reply to something that's been posted. So if you find something particularly interesting, you know, Nintendo announces the Wii U, a new video game system, you could actually just click the reply button right there. When you hover over it, it's right there, reply. And it pre-fills it in for you. And you notice the @ symbol is always before their username, which they should never change once they've set the right one. And then you would type in, yay, looking forward to it. And you could submit it. I always sign off with my name because I'm under a corporate account, and I want people to know that it's me actually using the account and not just an employee. It's harder to talk to a quote-unquote company. It's easier to talk to a person. I'm talking to Brent. I'm not talking to quote-unquote envision it. It's really tough to get an engaging conversation going when there's no person's name in there. It makes it less interesting and less engaging and less likely that it would be shared. So I'll just click tweet, and it's as simple as that. Your tweet has been sent. If I go back to the top here, it's because I had new tweets come in since. You'll see it right here, and so you can see that the @ symbol automatically hyperlinks that username. So if someone else was looking at my feed right now, they could actually click that and pull up and follow or read some of the updates, or they could go straight to the account by clicking on it again. So that's where the social media really comes into play here, because everything is linked together and increases exposure. Now, what's more important here is now TechCrunch and Jordan R. Crook are going to see it in their feed as well. They typically will watch who's talking to them. They'll watch who's talking with them and whatnot. And they'll see right here, you know, I can see stuff that is coming in where people are talking about our account or talking to us. And so, you know, I might sit there and say, reply again, and it'll have the usernames in there and say thanks, and just send that out. Now, I'm not being very wordy right now. Typically, I would take some time and think about what I want to say back, but I'm trying to give you examples in a timely manner because I want to provide as much value in this hour as possible that we can. Hashtags is the next one, the pound symbol. I've had so many questions surrounding this. Can I make them up? What do I do? How do I do it? What's going to work for me? My best advice to you is watch others in your industry. Follow others in your industry. Follow your friends and family. Follow other individuals that are using social media successfully and learn from them. Yes, you can make up a hashtag as you wish. Yes, there are hashtags that are way more popular than others. You can do whatever you wish with hashtags, and that's what makes it more challenging. Some tips and what's worked for me. Making sure that you use ones that are relevant to your geographical location if you're targeting them, Ottawa, pound Ottawa. Making sure that they're relevant to your industry, web design, pound web design, and stuff like that. So I could say, interesting news today about topic. I'm just going to do that. Those symbols are merely there to confuse you, sorry. And what it would have is it might have a link, bit.ly, and it'll have a link. I'm just making that up right now, but let's say there was a link there, okay? And it was about web design in Ottawa in general. I would actually make sure I put the hashtags in there. Now, how do I know these are valid tags? Once again, I've done that work. I've learned that. I know that. There is a website called hashtags.org. It's also in this slideshow later. Don't worry about it. You don't need to write it down now. that can teach you a lot of the most popular and trending topics on Twitter and trending hashtags and whatnot, and you can really benefit from that. So if you find out that tomorrow something big happens and all of a sudden the Montreal or the Toronto hashtags are used nonstop, doesn't it make sense to try and write some tweets surrounding those geographical locations as well to maximize your exposure? Absolutely. And so that's very important, and that's what using hashtags has value for, because a lot of people, will watch certain hashtags. They have applications installed, of which I'm not covering today, because an application like Hootsuite could be a webinar all on its own. But hashtags that people watch on a regular basis to find out what's going on in, those topics or those locations get a lot more exposure. Keyword leveraging and hijacking. Now this one's interesting, and I've talked about leveraging the keywords that you know about, geographical keywords and whatnot. But what about if there's a networking event, at a location in Toronto that you wish you could have attended, but you cannot? You should look at that documentation and follow the users the day of the event and join the conversation. That is what's known as keyword hijacking. It is extremely powerful. You can actually gain clients just from doing that alone. You eventually will have to make it clear that you're not at the event, but that you wish you could be at the event or something like that. Sometimes you will have to do that. But the point is that you'll have 100 people at that event talking around the topic, all of which are either your potential clients or partners, etc. And using hashtag where they're all watching it because they're all at an event and they're all using the hashtag to talk. Very, very, very powerful. Very important. By hijacking those keywords, again, very negative term, but that's the term that the industry has given it, so I'm using it, you can actually amplify your potential for gaining new business. Finally, watch your competitors. Guess what? All your competitors are trying to do the same thing as you are during the event. They're trying to, within social media, they're trying to maximize their exposure. So why not learn from them as well? Watch what they do on social media and learn what they do. And keep an eye on them. And the reason for this is there may be hashtags that become popular that they start using. There may be customers that they have that you should potentially follow. An example of this would be if you went to a competitor, and you wanted to follow, so you wanted to gain interest from their customer base and whatnot. So I'm just going to go to the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce's page here. Sorry to use you guys as an example, but obviously Ottawa Chamber is not a competitor of ours. But I know that they're primarily Ottawa-based, and I know that their followers, chances are primarily Ottawa-based, and I know that they may be interested in the services that I offer. What I do is once I load their page, I click on their followers, and I haven't done this yet for Ottawa Chamber. So then I actually now can spend 15 minutes and go through a few of these and see if they might be potential customers or, interested individuals. But I'm not going to start trying to sell. Again, it's about networking. I'm just going to follow. And then I'm going to close it, and I'm going to move on. And I'm going to read the next one, and I'll follow. And what I'm doing is I'm creating followers so that when they tweet, I can see what they say. And when they say it, I can choose when to engage. If I follow Bill and Bill says something that I find interesting surrounding a topic and I engage, and leave it at that, Bill may respond. I'm building rapport. It's no longer a cold lead. It's not a lead yet either at that point, but I'm creating a rapport. Over time, we may start chatting. Guess what? That's one more connection than I had yesterday. And if I do this only 10, 15 minutes a day to one or two individuals that may be potentially interested in me, I'm increasing exposure. Now, what's more important to realize is this. A colleague of mine told me this a while back, and what he said was, picture individuals with a number on their head. And the reason for this is very important. Bill might not be a potential customer of mine ever, But Bill may be very, very connected. And if Bill knows that I do a good job in certain areas of my business, when someone is talking with him about their requirements in terms of internet presence, Bill will very likely say, I know a guy, I recommend, I think they're great, etc. That's why you need to think of these social media channels and these network connections and opportunities as exactly that. They're opportunities, not threats. And the reason for that is, a lot of individuals I talk to say, well, a lot of my competitors follow me. Guess what? Many of my perceived competitors followed me too. I'm not doing business with half of them. They'll call me up and say, we do this, but not that. Can you help us? We have a standing offer with the government on this, but we can't do that, that, and that. We're going to not be able to bid on this project. Do you want to go in together? It creates more opportunities. There's no threat there. And it's the same thing if I go to my competitors' pages and I follow their customers or their leads, the individuals that are following them, most of which won't be their direct customers. They're just interested in what they have to say. Well, chances are they're going to be interested in what I have to say. So they're going to follow me back. So it's all about thinking before you act, making a plan surrounding building a quality audience, which I will cover next. Now, I'm gonna show another question here. Just give me a second to pull that presentation back up. Okay. So, how many of you have a social media strategy? I'm going to launch that right now. I'm interested to hear what you all think. All right, I'm just going to end that poll. And I'll share the results here. All right. So as you can see, most people have an idea but not a formal plan. Many don't have a plan, and few do have a plan. I've been through this process a number of times. I've actually thrown out my plan a number of times as well. Sometimes you're going to make a plan that doesn't work. I'm not going to lie to you. Straight dope. Sometimes you make a plan, it's a horrible plan, but you got to try it anyhow. It's better to make a plan and execute and learn from your mistake and move on, a more informed and a better person, than to not make a plan at all. It's very important to make a plan because it helps you to get to the next level, to find out what does work. And that's the challenge. A lot of people will join Twitter, use it a bit sparingly, and say it doesn't work. But when you look at if they've created a plan and executed a plan and adapted the plan and tried a new plan, whether or not they actually did that is another story. You must have a plan. Now, you must have a plan, and I'm going to actually show you guys a little bit about my plan and how I've done so well in growing my social media presence, because it's very important and it's very concise. This is one of my most recent strategies. I still have others that are underway. Some of them are working, some of them are not, but they're not honed yet. But this plan is simple. I sit down with a piece of paper. I create a number of targets. A target could be an industry. Maybe I'm creating an internet presence application that targets the restaurant industry. Maybe I'm creating one that targets the legal industry. Maybe I'm creating an iPhone application that targets the dating industry. These are all examples. Then I find who I want to follow. An example of this is simple. If I want to find Ottawa restaurants, I go to Google. I type in Ottawa restaurants. I write down a list of the restaurants that I want to see if they have Twitter accounts. I write them down one by one. And then I type those names in and add the word Twitter at the end. I'll type in restaurant name, space, Twitter. Guess what? First search result is their Twitter account. Every time, if they have one. Most times, anyhow, if they've set it up right, which is why you need to set up your bio which is why you need to set up your account properly. Now, if they've done that, I find them very quickly, and then I follow them. Now, that arrow between follow and engage should be a little longer, but I didn't feel like making the slide look a little odd. So why? Because you don't engage right away. Once you've followed them, you listen to them, you watch what they're saying, you find the opportunity to engage. And when they say something interesting, you know, the other day I was looking at an ice creamery here in town, and they posted some green tea ice cream that I really liked. I was like, oh yeah, I love that. That looks delicious. You know, I just said that. They followed me back within about 5 minutes. I knew they would. I could predict that. And we've had discussions since, you know. But you look for the right opportunity to engage, and it has to be genuine. It can't seem forced, you know. Obviously, that takes time. Yes, it does. I do it about 3 times a day, 15 minutes a time, depending on the day. Some days I'm just too darn overwhelmed, and I fall off the bandwagon of my plan. But I get back on it the next day, just like a diet. Filter who you follow. Don't just follow everyone. You have a limit. You can only have 2,000 followers on your account. You can only follow 2,000 people if you have 0 followers. They only allow you a 2,000 surplus ratio. So don't just go following trigger happy. Follow people that you can actually have a chance of engaging with, and them following you back and being interesting to you and whatnot. You know, follow that plan. Filter who you follow. Sometimes you'll have to remove people. I've followed people that just, you know, they tweeted every 4 seconds, and it was, you know, spam or just not interesting to me. So I unfollow them. I move on. And finally, what are lists and how to use them? Now, this is where I go hands-on. I'm going to show you guys the lists that I've created and how I use them to create engagement, to create following, and whatnot. Lists are a way for you to organize Twitter accounts. Now, lists are easy to find if you just click on your little silhouette. The second option is lists. I've created a whole bunch of lists, and I've done it for different reasons. Maybe you have a hobby. You know, maybe you like a certain thing. And so the hobby you might like would be, you know, let's say I'm interested in fitness, which I am. So what I would do is I would create a fitness group. Why do I do that? Well, it gives me a lot of opportunity to engage with people. Again, it's hard to know what to do on Twitter at all times. But if someone says something that's interesting, you know, and they find my interest, chances are I'm going to do very well building internet presences for fitness companies that have interest in fitness. So that's why I created that list. But more importantly, when I follow someone and add them to that list, most times, 90% of the time, they're so tickled pink that I've added them to that list, they follow me back. Well, now they're actually reading what I say on a regular basis. So chances are, once again, they're going to see my message on an ongoing basis, and potentially, when the time comes and they need work done on their internet presence, they'll give me a call. Another reason is targets. Let's say, for example, I'm launching an application for, I don't know, let's say the first one on my list there, the wedding industry. Well, a good idea would be then 3 months in advance to create a wedding list, add people to it, get them following me, you know, listen to what they're talking about, see what's going on in their industry. It can serve as research. It can serve as creating warm leads where I get a chance to talk to them. And it can get them to follow me so that at the time when I do launch a product for that industry, they're paying attention. Their eyes are square on me. I'm going to increase my sales right out of the gate dramatically, 1,000%. Before I would have been out the gate and saying, okay, how do I approach these guys? Do I call them? Hi, I'm so-and-so. Well, cold calls are very tough. You know, it's a numbers game. This gets over the numbers game. Another one is people I've met. You know, create a list for people I've met. A lot of people do this, and it's very powerful because if you know someone fairly well and you find a list of people they've met, and in that list there's 4 or 5 people you would like to potentially get introduced to, bang, easy. Quick and easy. You can ask them, can you introduce me to so-and-so? You know, it's very easy for you to use in that regard. And it's an easy filter to find followers. Another exercise, I'm going to use the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce as an example. So if I go to the Ottawa Chamber again, and I look at their account, and I go to look at the lists, they're on the side here, that they are members of, this is a very easy way for me to find other followers, because I can look through the list and find, it even tells me the number of members. So I find a list that has a number of followers. I'm using Ian Graham from the Code Factory as an example here. I don't know if he's on the webinar today, but hopefully he is. And I can see, I can subscribe to the channel, to the list. But I can also click to see who's members. And then I can determine if any of the members part of the Ottawa list by Ian Graham, who I know personally, are individuals I would want to follow, because I know chances are these are other individuals that are in Ottawa, that are into entrepreneurship like Ian is, that are small to medium businesses that might require my services. And I can click on each one of these individuals, one by one, systematically. Read their bio, see where they're located, and follow them. It is that simple. And you can go down the list. Now, one important thing. You cannot do this nonstop all the time. And the reason for this is because every hour you have a limited number of transactions. I think it's 200 or something like that. So if it starts throwing an error, don't assume it's Twitter. Don't assume it's you. Just stop for an hour and go back later. Not going to lie to you. Once you get everything under wraps, it should take you, like me, 3 times a day, 15 to 20 minutes. But at first, it takes time to get momentum. If you're not willing to get through that growing pain, you just will never get over that hump to really reap the rewards that Twitter can provide you. It's a challenge that every business, myself included at the beginning, faced. It is challenging. Useful tools and resources. I'm only going to go through a few of these because of the time limitations, but I wanted to include a bunch of them that I find very useful. That last one I've already talked about, hashtags.org, helps you find hashtags. Clout, again, going from the bottom up, and I'm only doing that because I'm going to mention these two and then I'm going to go into demos. Clout is a reputation management software. It helps manage your reputation. It allows you to add reputation to friends, family, and colleagues. And so an example of this is Brent Mondu thinks that the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce has a reputation in Ottawa. I could actually give Ottawa Chamber of Commerce some clout, it's called, for Ottawa. So I can't explain more than that today because our time is limited, but let me get into Buffer App and Bit.ly because they're two very important applications. Buffer App allows you to schedule tweets. This takes care of all of your challenges when you say, I don't have time to tweet all day. I can't tweet all day. I can't tweet at noon. I can't tweet at 4 p.m. I can't tweet at 7 p.m. But that's when my users are online. Bufferapp.com. It's free. Sign up, set it up, use it. It's completely free. It works with Twitter. It works with Facebook. It works with LinkedIn. Today we're only talking about Twitter, but you can use it for all of those. I will show it in a second. And bit.ly does two things. It shortens URLs, and it tracks engagement. Why shorten URLs? Again, you have 140 characters. And I'm only giving you 120 because you want people to retweet. And we've talked a bit about the retweet benefit. But if you use 200 characters to link to ottawachamber.ca/this/that/that, the whole event URL that's in there, it's going to take up your entire 120 characters. So bit.ly helps you shorten that URL to about 15 characters. Bang. Sweet. That's awesome. Tracking engagement. If someone clicks that link afterwards, bit.ly also tracks that they clicked it. It tracks who clicked it, when they clicked it, and what they clicked it from. So an example of this is Twitter. How many clicks did I get from Twitter? So I'm going to pull that up again and show you those apps. So this is Buffer App. And Buffer App is a simple little application that enables you to post. You can write a post right here, whatever you want, and you can choose which channels to send it out on. All 3 or 1. Again, if you're using hashtags, just choose Twitter. I spend the time, I spend the extra 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, at first 2 minutes, but after a while it's about 30 seconds to write my tweet and include hashtags. So if you look here, it'll have hashtags right here. Will mobile kill Facebook in 8 years? And it's pointing to an interesting article on Mashable, and it's got some hashtags in there. Now, I may have that as well on one of these other channels that has not been released yet. Yes, on LinkedIn, it's got that and the link, but not the hashtags. So because I want it to be maximized in terms of engagement, and on other channels, seeing those hashtags is kind of, you know, it's distracting. And so what I do is I write it 3 times if I need to, or 2 times in this case. Maybe the same thing goes on LinkedIn and Facebook. The account is free until you use a certain number of tweets. For most people, that won't be a problem. Not total number of tweets, sorry, scheduled tweets. So you can have 10 scheduled at any one time for each one of your channels. After that, you pay for an account, and the cost is modest. You can upgrade. I haven't needed to. A couple of times I've kind of hoped I had it, but for the most part, I haven't needed to. And so what you do here is, you know, you write it. I clicked on Twitter right here, and if you write a tweet and then click post now or add to buffer, if you post now, it's going to post now. Kind of might as well do that on Twitter. But if you add it to buffer, buffer decides when it should go out. You can change your times and override it, but it's choosing that based upon its prediction as to how many users were active and tweeting at the times from your follower list over the last couple of days. You know, so it's saying my next tweet should go out at 5:09 p.m. I'm going to get the maximum exposure then. Now, I would love to spend more time on this. There's a bit more stuff in here, but unfortunately, I'm running short on time. So, bit.ly. Bit.ly, as I mentioned, creates short URLs. When it creates a short URL, you can actually just paste the link here, and it'll create a short URL. So, and I hit enter on my keyboard there, just so you know. And I can create it, and I can save it and share it. This is actually a bitmark, however. The way that I do it is they have in their tools, they have the ability for you to create something that just has a bit.ly sidebar right here, and it'll enable you to automatically post something when you're on that page. So the best thing about it, like I said, is when you're in the stats. So when you're in the stats, you can see how many people clicked. And you can see what percentage of the clicks. I generated 30% of the entire 10 clicks that was on this link. You can actually click it and see when the clicks came in, 3 clicks, June 5th, how they came in, direct, Facebook, extranet, that's actually an internal product of ours, and then email clients. That's because a lot of people have set up their Twitter account to email them when certain people post, or Facebook, etc. So you can see also the locations. 50% of my clicks came from Canada and 50% from the US. So I know that people are engaging on this. And then I can look at the global stats if I want to compare how I'm doing compared to other people that have posted this link or stories that are of interest. Like the other channels, like the other applications, Buffer app and whatnot, I'd love to go into more detail about this, but I'm just about out of time in terms of the actual webinar portion of it. It's very tough to cover all of the topics surrounding Twitter and how you can maximize engagement, which is why we're making this available online for download. Very, very important to look at. If you need more help, if you're at a more beginner level and some of this stuff was over your head, I recommend you check out the following 3 resources. Twitter support. Mashable has Twitter and Facebook guides that will help you. They're always maintaining them, keeping them up to date. It'll help you to learn the basics. And don't forget to search Google. You know, if you search Google, how do I on Twitter? You know, how do I whatever on Twitter? You'll find results. Next webinar scheduled with the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce is on Thursday, July 12th. Registration will open soon from noon to 1. It will be covering the topics of Google Analytics. A lot of people know what Google Analytics is, but don't actually know how to use it to make decisions or to bring their business to the next level. We had a lot of demand from a survey that was sent out through the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce for this webinar, and so we've scheduled it for next month. Finally, I'd like to thank you all. I'm going to open up the floor for 15 minutes for questions, and I'm going to cover as many questions as I can during this process. But first, I'd like to thank the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce for hosting this webinar and all of you for attending. And I already see a lot of questions that have been submitted. Thank you as well for your engagement and interest in this topic. I hope that I provided a lot of value during this 45-minute webinar. If I had more time, I'd spend a lot more time on those specific tools, but I have a feeling that it's going to take you guys just diving in head first, trying them out and learning, because there's little things in there that get a little bit confusing. And to be honest with you, bit.ly changed on Friday on me. So their entire website, bit.ly, just changed on Friday. So I'm still getting used to the new version of it. So I'm not actually 100% comfortable with it. That's something we have to learn to accept in social media and technology. We're always going to have a bit of a learning curve. Don't let that get in your way of success. If you want to learn more about social media or becoming a social media superhero, we do have a program. It's betterwebsites.ca/SMS. There are predefined programs there, but I also do custom consulting and programs to help people with areas of concern that they're having challenges with and whatnot. Please feel free to check it out. All right, I'm going to get into the questions now. So it'll just take me a minute. I'm just going to read through some of them. Do you recommend making lists of mostly hobbies or work-related? It's interesting, and that depends on your industry. I do both. I honestly do both, and the reason for that is because I try to keep my Twitter and social media balanced. I'm not afraid to say that I'm going out for a beer on Friday afternoon with the staff. I'm not afraid to, talk about certain things in my life that I like, martial arts or stuff like that. I tend to put it out there, but it works. It works for me in general. It creates engagement and interest from other individuals. Maybe it scares away a couple of people because they're just not comfortable with that type of, topic or whatnot. But in general, I have never had a problem with it. What's a channel? Well, when I use the word channel throughout this, I was talking about Facebook. Facebook would be one social media channel, and Twitter's another social media channel. How do I get more followers? That slide a couple back where I say target, find, follow, and engage is a very good approach. You don't want to just go out there and follow everyone. You want to follow people that have reputation. You want to follow people that have followers as well. And that's, if you follow 100 people that have no followers, well, if they're genuine accounts and they're useful, sure, go for it. But most times they won't be. So another thing, question here I have is, how do I get people to retweet my posts? That's an art more than anything. You need to make them interesting. You need to make them topical. You need to make them engaging, and you need to make them relevant. Chances are, if you're talking about current events, or if you can tie something to current events, you're going to get a lot more engagement. Can I edit a tweet once I've posted it? No, unfortunately, you cannot. You can delete and recreate it, but unless it's positive and already viral, maybe you wouldn't want to delete it and recreate it. If it's positive, then there's no big issue. Maybe you wish you had put another hashtag in it. Don't worry about it. If it's very negative, if it's a typing error, if it's a paste from your buffer and it was a complete mistake, delete it. Get rid of it. But this is a good one. What do I do with negative feedback? Don't delete, don't suppress negative feedback. Address it head on. If it's an authentic complaint, if it's true, if you made a mistake, if your network was down, if your service or product was offline, if your product was released and there was a problem with it, apologize. show genuine sympathy and correct the error. If it's false, then address it head on. Ask them to call you publicly. Chances are your other customers are going to defend you if it's completely false. What is the benefit of shortening my URL? Well, as I mentioned on Twitter, you only have 140. I like to give you only 120 characters. Shorter URLs allow you to write a bigger message. Plus, when you use bit.ly, you get tracking. Oh, an interesting one. I didn't cover this topic. What's a favorite tweet? Well, it can be used to identify a tweet that you find favorites. To the right of that little retweet icon I showed before, there was a favorite option. When you click on the favorite, it adds it to your favorites. You can use it for a number of reasons. I use it to bookmark just to show appreciation for people, and sometimes I use it to save for later. Maybe someone put a testimonial online, and I know I'm going to want to retweet it, today, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 9 months, in a year. I'm going to retweet it off and on into the future, so I save it. I favorite it so that I can retweet it off and on, so that I'm not spamming people with it all the time every day. Hey, I got a testimonial. No, but occasionally I'll bring that back, and I'll retweet it again to show that people are happy with my service. What is a trending topic? A trending topic, which hashtags.org covers as well, is any topic that becomes popular on Twitter. So anything that happens in Hollywood or in the news and whatnot tends to become a trending topic. And it's good when there's trending topics surrounding your industry, because it gives you a chance to market based upon those trending topics, to talk about it. How often should I tweet? At least daily, I would say. I would say try to do it 2 to 3 times a day. Consistency is key, especially when learning. If you don't spend some time and consistently try and learn, you're going to have a lot harder time learning, and actually getting the hang of this. It's very, very important. How can I tell or see if my stuff is getting retweeted or even read? Things that are read, that's very tough because it just goes by on the feed. Retweets, if you look at the top of Twitter, there's Home, Connect, and Discover. When you click on Connect, it shows all of your engagement. It shows all of the people that have interacted with you. Some of the interactions will be your retweets. So you'll know when someone is retweeting for you. I think that's most of these questions, actually. Does anyone else have other questions they want to throw in here? I guess while I'm waiting, I'm going to say something I forgot to mention as well. Please take the time to follow the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce at Ottawa Chamber, or if you go to twitter.com/Ottawa Chamber, you'll get to them. And if you wish to follow us as well, you can go to twitter.com/betterwebsites. Ottawa Chamber of Commerce is putting on events all the time. They're here to support the local businesses, small, medium, and large. They're involved in government, charity, and they're all over the place. So they are up to speed on anything to do with business in Ottawa. It's a quick and easy way for you to, find a lot of things to talk about and find a lot of things to get involved in. I guess, I really want to make it important. Make sure that I emphasize the importance that networking is not just about networking online. You can do social media marketing and networking and whatnot, but it doesn't replace traditional networking. You will create strong connections by getting out to networking events and stuff like that. This is not just a plug for the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce. I genuinely believe this. I've seen it firsthand. Networking in person cannot and will not ever be replaced. So, interesting question. How do you use your Outlook contacts list to find users that you might want to follow? Last week I was doing some social media training with someone, and they asked me, they said, we have X thousands of customers. It was a lot of customers, like tens of thousands of customers. I said, how do we find them all? Unfortunately, there's no way to do it yet. I'm sure Twitter's working on it. You can actually find Twitter followers by connecting to, like at the beginning when you sign up, to connecting to, I believe, Gmail and a couple of options like that. The only way would be to talk to your tech team and get your contacts out of there and into another software package that Twitter supports for importing your contacts and finding your followers and whatnot. There's no real way to do it automatically or easily without technical assistance. I wish I had a better answer for that, but that's the truth. So, how easy is it to post a picture or video on Twitter? And does it take away my number of characters? If you go to Twitter, there's a little icon below each one of the tweets that you do. When you start typing, it's right here, add an image, add your location. And so when it's a video, typically I post it on YouTube and then I link to it with a short link, and it'll automatically embed it in Twitter. Does it take away the number of characters? For a video, it does, because it has a link to that video. For a photo, I never thought of it. I don't think it does. So when I post photos and whatnot, it does for me typically, because I'll usually post it from my website, and so I'll have a link back to my website. So of course it'll have the link. I only occasionally upload photos this way, and I usually use my iPhone for it after I've taken a picture and upload it that way. So excellent. If you add location, you may restrict clients from seeing it from other locations. No, it just identifies where you are. Adding the location does not restrict who can see your tweets. Your tweets are public. The only way you can change that is if in your Twitter account there's public or protected accounts, whereby protected accounts not anyone can follow. They have to ask to follow. I prefer to let anyone follow. That's a terribly tedious step to manage. If you had a lot of followers, that would consume your day sitting there approving followers and whatnot. And perhaps social media is not the right channel if you're concerned about who's following you and seeing the messages that you're using. You cannot assume that social media is safe and that the API is not going to pull your contact information or the tweets that you say. Social media channels like Twitter are not to be used for private use, even if you perceive it to be private. Even a direct message. If you're concerned that that might get out into the public, whatever you're saying there, don't do it. Just don't do it. Save yourself the hassles and the headaches. So how do you feel about tweeting from Facebook? I don't do it. And the reason for that is because Facebook doesn't use hashtags. Facebook doesn't use @tags. Facebook doesn't use the same account names. And so I do it manually with both. I've used Hootsuite. Hootsuite typically does an okay job. Sometimes Facebook summarizes eight more from this application. I'll show, Brent sent out an update from this, and 7 more from this channel. So it tends to summarize and hide the content, and so I prefer to use the channels directly. It's just my own personal preference, to each their own, but that's how I use it. Will what you write in one list be seen by all your followers? The lists you don't write in. The lists are just lists. They're who are added to the list, who are removed to the list. You cannot write to a list. A list is not like an email list in an email program. A list is an organization of contacts. Kind of like if you could, in your phone, say, okay, contacts, business contacts, personal contacts. Maybe you could email them all, but so maybe I'm confusing things, but you cannot send out a message just to a list. You could mention a list. You could even link to a list, but you cannot exclusively send that message out only to that list. It is public information. Do you tailor messages by social media outlet? I do. Absolutely. I do. I put it more casual sometimes in Facebook, and I use shorthand sometimes in Twitter because it's accepted because you run out of space. All right. There's probably about 100 more questions in here. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of your questions today. I've answered most of them. Hopefully you found it to be very valuable. I really appreciate all of your time. If you go to betterwebsites.ca/SMS, And into our free resources, we have a free downloadable Twitter cheat sheet that includes a lot of additional information that I could not cover today, including, how to get started on Twitter, what steps you should take, what is shorthand, what are some of the shorthands used, how do I understand what these things are. It's all in there, and I've put it there, had my great team behind me prepping it over the last week while I was prepping for the webinar. Download it. It's an invaluable resource. It is awesome. I love it. I actually looked at it once the other day for a shorthand, and I was like, I wonder what that shorthand means. And unfortunately, I still don't know what that shorthand meant, but I've used it, and my colleagues have used it a lot in terms of finding shorthands that do work. At the end of this webinar, there will be a questionnaire. The Ottawa Chamber of Commerce has asked me to send this out for you guys. Please take 1 minute to fill it out. It's 3 simple questions, and they would really appreciate your feedback. They want to put on these webinars and keep them of as high quality and valuable for you guys, so they really appreciate knowing how we're doing and how you felt the webinar was, whether it was useful or not. Thanks again for your time. Thanks to the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great afternoon.